Okay, welcome to the last session of the day. This is 2M. This is the 101 stream. And here is Pavel and Marketa. If you'd like to introduce yourselves, so we can start.
Okay, so I'm going first. So hello everybody. My name is Pavel. I'm like 15 years with mainframe. I started like 5 years on pure green screen, so high-level assembler and dump reading. Then I was in like mixed role between the backend and frontend. It was Java application running on Tomcat server as started task, and then last, let's say 8 years, I'm in pure R&D team, which is responsible for the innovation around the mainframe. So we are in touch with the zOSMF. We have prepared workshops and guidelines there in Broadcom for the workflow configuration development and so on. So we would share some kind of like tips we have found for the automation which can be done with the workflows. So that's about me. And then I would just mute myself and let's speak Marketa.
So hello, my name is Marketa. I'm working with mainframe for exactly 9 years. It will be actually tomorrow, 9 years. And at the beginning of my career, there was zOSMF, but now I'm more focused on Ansible. So Pavel, next slide, please. So what's on our session agenda, you ask? So there will be brief zOSMF overview. We will talk about what is zOSMF workflow. There will be some examples, life cycle of a step. We will also show you some velocity template language that you can use in the workflow, and then some tools how you can work with the workflows. It will be VS Code Zowe Explorer plugin, workflows for Z plugin, and then Zowe CLI workflow support. And then at the end, automation with all pieces together. So what is zOSMF? It's short for zOS Management Facility. It's a web server. It's using Liberty WebSphere application server. And it's actually a set of RESTful APIs. And there is built on top of those APIs also web UI. And security is implemented by your favorite stuff. And zOSMF started when was zOS version 2.2, but it wasn't automatically included. But from the version 2.3, it's always there. You just need to set it up. That's all. So next slide. Here you can see the screen of zOSMF, the web UI. There is, for example, workload manager, software management, but we will be focused on the upper right, left corner on the workflows. So now, Pavel.
So what is the zOSMF workflow? Technically, it's the XML file which can be then loaded into the zOSMF. So by IBM terminology, until it's loaded, it's called like workflow definition file. So in the rest of the shop, we would be just talking about the workflow, because for me it's still the same. It's just XML file. Once it's just in your mainframe USS file or as a PDS member or on your local machine. And when it's like loaded in the zOSMF, IBM call it create, but for me it's more like register. Then it's referred as a workflow, because then it's like executable, I would say. What are the benefits of the workflow? That it ensures that all tasks which you have in the workflow, in the steps, it would be executed in the sequence. You can monitor and track the progress. It would provide the history, so you could, for example, check what you did last week with your let's say JCL steps and so on. What is really beneficial when you are like unfamiliar with some task, when it's properly prepared, it could really guide you. So it's like prepared example which you can just execute after you file a few variables, and it could be prepared as fully automated script. So this is what we would be focusing on this session. So this is live example from the Zowe GitHub. So we have as well contributed there with few workflows there. So technically, as I said, workflow is just XML file which contains some XML syntax, but then you could later consider it as like Lego pieces. So that there are two main breaks. One is the variable, so where you can define the variable, and there are steps. So technically, variables could be then shared across all the steps. So steps could be a lot of stuff. Marketa will talk later. So just simply it could be shell script, JCL, Rex, whatever you could imagine, even the REST call. And variables could be as well like many things like string, Boolean, again, many types. So what are the options how you could collaborate between your workflow and the zOSMF mainframe? I would say the first, and I will not say easiest, but the first one is that probably you would prepare in the green screen or MAVS some direct directory, and then you would just FTP the workflow file there. But you need client for that. You need to ensure that you are properly sending it in binary, and as well that proper permissions are set and so on. So it's time consuming, and you need to be careful that you are testing the latest fresh version and so on. So way easier is to use some tool. So what we are using for that or could be used is the Zowe CLI directly from the command line, and the Zowe CLI we would use as well for the automation later, or some kind of like an extension. So I'm familiar with the VS Code extension called Zowe Explorer. So you can use this one to as well for like manipulation for data between your local PC and the mainframe, or the workflow for the extension, which is really dedicated just for the work with the zOSMF workflows. So this is the example, I would say hello world. So this is whole workflow. So as you can see, it's just like 41 lines, which is technically really already doing something. It's not doing anything fancy. It's just shell JCL type. So technically it runs as a shell script where is done echo message of one variable. So there is definition of one variable. So it's like this piece of code. It's the type of string. It has some context. Then there is a step which is called just show message. In that step, you just need to technically like initialize that variable and set that in template. There is done some substitution. It means that technically this variable which is going through, let's say through the flow, would properly get substituted in here. So this is enough to be able to execute shell script via the zOSM workflow. So as you can see, it's, I would say, very similar, very simple. So there is just like workflow info, which you can take as a granted. It will be just what is visible for the user when he loads it. And then there is, let's say, a bunch of variables and bunch of steps. So if you are like loading, I would say manually. So if you would FTP it, in the workflow panel, you would just click create workflow. You would set up the system where you would like to load it. You would point it to the either USS directory or PDS member, where is it? And together with it, you can load as well something what is called variable input file, which technically is a preset of the variable. So you could, let's say, prepare 3 sets of input files, each for, let's say, different data sets or different LPARs. And based on the defaults which will be there, the workflow would behave differently. So it's like you could easily prepopulate the XML with some defined files. When you are setting it manually, then you need to specify some workflow name. You need to specify the user ID who is assigned to it. And what you don't have to forget is to mark this, assign all steps to owner user ID. That technically as well, what workflows enables is that more different steps could be assigned to different users far. But let's say for development purposes or for automation purposes, it's always good when you have it to, let's say, user who is authorized to, let's say, run it from the batch. So if there would be different users assigned, then there are some like notifications going on. The user had to like accept that notification and so on. So definitely it would not work in some kind of automation pipeline. And this is how this hello example would look like in the zOSMF. So you would just see like some panels. There you would see that one variable which was there with some prefilled value. And it would then request to set the job header as well. This is something what is already preset inside the zOSMF. So when you have it in the automation, you need to be careful that already your account info and message class is set to some kind of proper values. So it would not go to some kind of black hole. So the zOSMF is properly communicated with the let's say system. And then you would be just reviewing the JCL because it's a shell. JCL, technically, there is some extra stuff which is generated by the zOSMF, but technically there you can see what was in the workflow itself. So it's just the echo message of that variable, and after you can just submit it. So or as well save it, but for our purpose we are always submitting, and then you could review the output. So it's like same as you are using, for example, SysView or SDSF. So instead of jumping from screen to screen and check the output of some particular job by the name or ID, you could immediately see it in the zOSMF. And at the end, as I have said, because we have the history track, you could see the progress of the workflow which ran for you. So what was the state, who was the owner, if it was completed or not completed, or if it's just running and so on. And as I have said, the workflow as it is, it's just this. So this is like empty workflow, which contains just some kind of heading information, I would say like mandatory header, and then just some variables and some steps, and that's it. So technically, you can even take this as a like base example and then just extend it to whatever job you would like to achieve. So I have prepared another example, which is like, I would say, more mainframe. So there are two variables. One is a variable called volume. Artificially, I just set it as a string with some minimum and maximum lengths, which is allowed. So as well, what is good is zOSMF workflow could like check for you when the value is filled or accepted that it passed some criteria. So as well, that's something what is, I would say, hard achievable when you manually edit JCL. But this way, you could always check even before it gets to the execution queue. So you could technically capture the error way sooner. And then there is second variable called DS name. And as you can see, we are using their embedded zOSMF type, which is DS name. So technically, already the value had to pass to be like valid dataset name. Otherwise, it would be like captured as an invalid value, and the workflow would not get executed. And then I have one step, which is called create dataset. So it has some title, a description. This is something what is then visible to the user. It has two variables defined, which would be then used. And then in the instruction, there is just shown message that thus this data set would be created on this volume. As you can see, there is like, when variables are used in the zOSMF, it's always like $ curly braces and the variable name. There could be this instance dash or dot have to be. You could specify in the workflow that you can skip this, but because you can have even more types of variables in the zOSMF, not just like defined, but even like dynamically created or system variables. So when we are developing, to always already know what the variable is, we recommend to keep this default. So always this is a way that you know, okay, this is variable which is going from the user, not from the system, or it's not dynamically created as, for example, in some cycle or for some internal usage. And then in this step, you can see this is like simple JCL, which is technically creating the data set with some setup. It's using IFBEAR 14. And what you would spot already that there is no job header in this JCL, because the job header is automatically injected through the zOSMF. So this is, I would say, biggest difference between plain JCL and JCL, which is part of the zOSMF, that the job header is used from the definition how it's done in the zOSMF, but as well then when you are running like multiple jobs, like as a multiple steps, you always know that it's under the same header for all the flow. And second thing, which is I would say different from the plain JCL, if you would be running it on the green screen, it's those like curly braces, instance dash volume, because those are the zOSMF variables which are in. And now I would hand over the voice back to the Marketa, and she would be talking a bit about the other stuff from about the.
So step goes through a lot of stages. If you would just open the workflow without assigning all the steps to yourself, like Pavel showed you, all the steps would be unassigned. You would have to assign them to yourself or to any other zOSMF defined users. And as Pavel said, technically each step can be assigned to a different user with their different privileges. Then the step become assigned. If you have conditions or prerequisite steps there, steps are not ready until the prerequisite step is done. And based on the conditions, the step becomes either ready or skipped. We were here just showing the happy path, so everything is ready, right? And when you are waiting, for example, for some JCL to be finished, the steps is then in progress. And hopefully after that, the step will be completed, or in the worst case scenario, failed. So next slide, please. There are a lot of, well, exactly 5 different types of steps. There is just instruction steps, which can be simply instructions what you have to do manually. For example, it is good to not mess up some member in your proclib or parmlib. So there would be in the instruction step, go there and please add this variable there or something like that. Then we have file templates. Those are points to already existing file that the developer pre-created. Inline template are probably the most used, and it's JCL, Rex, or shell script written right inside the workflow definition file. Next is REST step, and this step issues the REST API. It could be one of the zOSMF owns or from your own server or basically from anywhere else from the internet where it allows basic authentication. The workflow REST API step is not yet capable of handling more advanced authorization, for example, tokens. And last is calling step, which calls just another workflow. So, and now the file template and the inline template are basically the same with the difference where the code is located. So you can submit those templates 5 different ways, but more likely you will just use JCL or shell JCL, and that is you will write the code just in shell, and then zOSMF takes care of wrapping it in JCL. There are a few different steps, so it's not just BPX batch, but Pavel already showed you. And the third most used type is TSO Rex JCL, and it's basically the same as the shell JCL, but it's written in Rex, right? So now, Pavel, go.
Okay, so next we would continue with velocity template language. What is it? It's a Apache project, and why we are using it? It's very useful tool how you could technically modify the GCL inside the workflow. So this is, I would say, not only one, but I would say the really good one. How you could like tailor the JCL during the runtime. So it's a templating language. I would say the syntax is very, very user friendly, so anybody could learn it relatively quickly, especially who has some kind of programming language experience in the background. It supports a lot of logics, and it's like modular. You could even write some kind of simple macros in it, which can be used as well inside the JCL. So this is something what you would see only as a developer. So for the user, it will be hidden. And we are using this VTL for the automation in the workflow. So how does it look like? Again, I have some example from the Zowe. So you could check it on your own if you check the Zowe install packaging for Zowe. So there is member Zowe caring, and those like sharp something, those are exactly the velocity template language conditions. So for example, this if statement is saying that if variable exists and is not empty, then this piece of the JCL would be included in the step. Or for example, if the product is equal ACF2, so it means that this piece for the ACF2 would be included in the JCL. So this way dynamically, you could like construct during the runtime the JCL, which is then visible for the user or executed in the background from the automation. So it's very powerful tool for the modification. There is shown one more advanced one. So for example, as you can see, there is some for each loop. And as I was talking, first there is used instance dash isu dataset. Isu are some kind of special variables, which is going only when you are in the portable software instance. But we are using this to technically capture dataset, which would be type of the ZFS. And then we are using it to mount it. So technically, as you can see, we have this piece of the velocity template as an inline template inside of the JCL. So we are running the BPX batch where we are reusing some values which we filled via this macro. So I would jump out from the presentation for a while. So for example, there we have a script again from the Zowe install packaging, so you could check it on your own. And this is, I would say, nice script because it's relatively short and even self-explanatory. And there you can see that, for example, there is exactly this check that if some kind of Rakev acid is defined, then some variable is filled and so on. So this I would probably refer more as an example when I will be talking back about the workflow development. So as I have said, this is one of the nice examples I have at the end of the presentation in the list as a resource you could then check. So I would continue in presentation. Good. So how you could be VTL used as a macro. So story behind is that when you are editing JCL, sometimes that you know that you need to put the continuation marker on position 72. So technically, your JCL could be broken during the runtime if, for example, some value would be longer than you expected. So for example, there will be multiple HLQs or some Unix pass or whatever else. So technically, if you would be manually editing JCL, the JCL would be then broken. You need to edit it again, split it properly, wrap it, and then run it again. So VTL is something what could help you with this. So technically, there is written macro called format line, and technically to this macro you are just passing a variable, which is this few spaces dd name equal to some variable, and then you are setting some parameters for this macro. And what the macro is doing is technically it's picking this incoming, let's say, value, and it's doing something with it, and then injects the context based on the setup of the macro. So I would explain it a bit. So technically, the macro is called format line. It has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parameters: line, length, indent, is it last line, and suffix. So line, this is technically the text which you are filling in, which you want to do some work with it. Then the len is technically where you want to be done the splitter. So in most JCLs, it's position 71, and you want to put the continuation mark on position 72. And for example, last line is that you could specify if this is the last line of GCL or not, and based on that, it would marker would be in on the following line or not. So, and suffix is technically what you want to be filled as a continuation character. So this is how the macro is written. Again, as you can see, this is like, I would say 20, 30 lines of the code. So you just technically take this, copy paste it in the step, and then you have like immediately format line macro available for your usage in the step. Now I would talk a bit about the plugins. So as I have said, the Zowe Explorer plugin is very nice plugin. If you are using the VS Code, you just type in the extension the Zowe Explorer, then you can like install it, and then you just need to enable it technically in the VS Code. Then you could see that you can then access the mainframe from the VS Code plugin. So technically there I have the structure from the USS from some LPAR, so that I could like check which, for example, file. For my case, this is the workflow XML file I would like to work with, and then I could just simply edit it in my favorite editor. And as well, I could use panel core jobs or datasets, and I would say the jobs is really nice. Again, if I'm familiar with the SysView or SDSF, this is the, let's say, quick way, again, how I could check some kind of outputs from the jobs. So I don't have to jump between the various screens and applications. I could immediately see inside the VS Code plugin. And why I like this plugin much is because mostly I'm using the Zowe CLI, and with this plugin is the easiest way how you could manage your profiles, because from the, let's say, latest version of the Zowe CLI, the secure credential store is part of the core, and then always technically your credentials are scrambled, and it's not so easy to change it, because then you need to do some kind of work with it. So the easiest way is to use this extension. You just click the profile you would like to manage, then you could update your credentials, and that's it. So this is the easiest way how you could maintain even the credentials for the Zowe CLI, which is then used by the automation. Then I would go to the second extension I would like to talk about. It's Workflows for Z. So this is the extension which is dedicated for work with the workflow. So it's independent of the Zowe Explorer, and it's even partly independent of Zowe CLI. So there are functions which are available even without the Zowe CLI, which you can use, but as well there are functions for which you really had to have the Zowe CLI as well on place. So functions independent on Zowe CLI are IntelliSense. I would say this is something what could help you when you are not much familiar with the workflow structure yet. So it could guide you with some kind of like a snippet. So you can just type some, let's say, catchers, and it could generate pieces of code for you. It could generate the variable input file for you. So technically, let's say that you have workflow where you have specified 10 variables, and then you could, by simple click, just generate the default input file, which you can just like modify for, let's say, different LPARs or different setups which you would like, and you don't have to type it by hand. And there is done some automatic validation of the workflow. So if you can, let's say, mistype some attribute step or something, let's say that lot of stuff would be already captured by this extension. And then there are features which are dependent on the Zowe CLI. It's the validation schema download. You could as well download the schema and set it manually. But if you have the Zowe CLI, you could just click, and technically it would auto-populate in the plugin. So you don't have to bother with downloading the schema against which is done the validation. And what is really, I would say, very useful is the workflow creation with zOSMF. So let's say by single clicking, you could immediately load the workflow from your VS Code inside the zOSMF and then run it. So this is, I would say, very, very useful stuff. So when you load it in the VS Code, you could see it like this. So you would see the workflow file, and if you right click, you can see already quick command with some let's say tools which can help you. So it's that create zOSMF. It would technically register it in the zOSMF. It could generate the variable input file. It could do the validation. And that's it. And this is how the snippets are working. So now I would jump out of the presentation and do some kind of live demo, so it would be better. So if I'm in the VS Code, I have there some example. So simply when I have the extension installed and activated, I could simply click like this. And you can see workflow is valid. So I am validating my workflow. I could like type like this. So I would do zOSMF. And for example, I would like variable. So I would just pick this and it will auto-populate this piece of code. I could just type like var1, jump over multiple fields and easily type like this. For example, I don't know what type of variable I would like to use. So again, I would type zOSMF variable and I would like to have a Boolean. So I would pick this. And again, it's like guiding me with the setup. I could do the same with the steps. So for example, I don't know how to do the steps. So I'm going to the section where steps should be. Again, I would type zOSMF step and I would let the plugin generate the pieces of code for myself. And again, it could guide me with the hints and help with the creation. So this is one way how I could use the extension, this IntelliSense. It means like dynamic snippet generation. As well, I could use the, let's say, validation feature. So let's say I would take a step and I would do some kind of wrong thing and I would try to save it. So again, it would start to scream that this is like wrong, I'm doing something wrong. So it captures, let's say, a lot of bugs, like if you inject some piece of code on improper place, or for example, if you have the variable which you copy paste it just like this. As I said, I like to work with it with Lego pieces, and I'm just forgetting to update it. So it will start to complain that technically I already defined this variable, so it's like duplicate value. So I forget to, for example, change it, so it should be prefix 2 with different setup and so on. So this way, it could really help me to guide me with the creation of the workflow. And as well, I could use either a quick setup through the right click, or I could go through the view command palette and, for example, create zOSMF workflow on some system. So I would just click it. I would type the workflow name. I would type the user under which I would like to set it, the shortcut for my system. And if I would like to override the workflow in the target system, and now the workflow is automatically registered in the zOSMF for me via the Zowe CLI. So I am just waiting for the message that my workflow was either successfully created or failed. So you can see my workflow was successfully created and I could immediately launch it. So this is how the workflows for the extension is working for you. So I would jump back to the presentation. So it's the and as well, it could generate the property file. So I could just click like this and it would generate the input property file for me. So a lot of useful stuff could be done with the workflow for the extension when you are developing the workflow. So technically you are working with the XML file as with any other script or code. So same way I'm editing the shell script or JCLs. So same way I'm working with the zOSMF workflow. And this is how it does look like the input property file. So technically there are some comments based on what I have in the code, and what is technically important is the variable equal to some value. So technically this is the variable ID, and via this it technically gets auto-populated by the value I specified after the equal mark. So then there is the Zowe CLI. So in Zowe CLI, there is a piece called zOSMF workflow. So this is the, let's say, option which enables you workflow management. And when you pick it, so the shortcut is WF. So it would just show you what is possible to do with the workflows in your system. So mostly we are using the workflow from the local file because we are registering on the zOSMF from the local files. So this is, I would say, mostly used function for us. And as well, you could format the output. So let's say the basic response from the Zowe is the JSON, and then I would show it in the automation script that technically we are using it, for example, to receive the workflow key, which is let's say the ID of the workflow, which we are then using when we are, for example, doing some kind of workflow manipulation from the automation pipeline. And as well, there are multiple options what you can do. So as I would be showing in the example, this is the response format JSON. So we are using this, and then we are picking particle piece of from the JSON which we are using. So I would say the JSON is very friendly thing that you don't have to really parse a lot of data when you want to do automatically something with the output. So how does it look like when you call it from the example? So it's like Zowe, zOS workflows. For example, when I would like to create a workflow, call create, workflow from local file, then I'm specifying the name which would be used for the registration, then I'm specifying they would like to do it from the local file, then the name of the local file, what would be the user, what would be the system, and this override means that if the workflow already exists under the name, I would just replace it. So if, for example, if I'm multiple times running the, let's say, same workflow and I'm testing something, I don't have to always register it under a unique name. I'm just like overriding what is in the system. And for the automation, what is important, you need to have in each steps set it this attribute, which is auto enable set to true. But as well, this is not only thing which does the automation. You need to prepare the let's say workflow and JCL the way that it automatically, for example, skips some steps which should not be executed in some flow, and as well you are properly populating some variables with the values which are going from the workflow input file. So as I said, necessary items for automation, it's the job header, prepare all steps and JCLs with the VTL macro modifications. All workflow steps had to be auto-enabled, and the substitution attribute in template is set to true. So technically, if you would follow this, then your workflow is automatically executable. First, there is example with the shell script. So if you are familiar with the shell, I'm just setting it. I'm setting some kind of my time variable that I would like to create the unique name of the workflow. I'm specifying the user and the system, and then I am calling the Zowe workflow create, and I'm storing the received value as a workflow key. So this is technically what it would do that. So that I'm specifying that my workflow name is discodocs and my input property file is discodocs property. So technically those two, this is my workflow, this is my input property file, and that I would like to return the workflow key from the call. So technically I'm storing it, and then I'm using this workflow key for the start of the workflow from the script. I'm checking if it failed or passed. If it passed, I know my workflow got executed. Then I am listing the steps of that workflow, and at the end, I'm deleting the workflow from the system. It means from the zOSMF. Similar script is for the Windows shell. So that I'm showing technically is doing the same. If you are familiar with the Windows script, it's technically doing exactly same job. So again, it's using Zowe to create the workflow in the zOSMF. Then it's starting it. Then it's checking if it passed or failed, and at the end I'm deleting it. So as you see, then I'm using the workflows from the script, and that means that now I could use the script in some kind of automation pipeline. So there I'm just showing how it does look like when I executing it. So I'm calling the script. I'm receiving some, let's say, info messages from the workflow, and at the end, I'm just listing the what technically happened, and I'm deleting the workflow from the system. So then, when I have technically developed, for example, a workflow for some kind of setup, for some kind of IVP procedure, for some kind of cleanup, whatever I could imagine, then I could run them in like kind of bigger script, so that I'm running like first workflow, which is doing something. So it will do something, then I'm calling starting it, then I'm calling second workflow, which is doing something. So I could have like one bigger script where are multiple workflows which are doing some jobs, or I could have, for example, different stages in something like Jenkins. And now I would again hand over voice to Markéta.
Well, the main thing is that our pipeline that is testing the workflows is done in Jenkins. It's run when the developer creates a pull request, and after the test pass, it can go right to production with its product. And I think we are already at the end of our session. So Pavel prepared also some useful URLs here. You can click on them, all of them, from the session repository, or where they are all stored. So I think that's it. Thank you very much. And send your feedback. Yes. This session is 2M.
Great, thank you very much. If there's any questions, then please put them in the chat. I'm sure Pavel and Markéta would love to hear anything. And if you could also look at doing the survey, the feedback form, you will be able to find that in your GSE build your own agenda. You'll be able to click on the link for this session and add your feedback. It'd be greatly appreciated for both us as chairs and the presenters. So any questions?
So if not, then goodbye, I guess.
Okay, if there's no questions, then thank you very much. Please fill in the feedback, and thank you for doing the last session of the day.
And we thank you, Ricky, for preparing the environment for us.
Thank you, Pavel, and thank you, Markéta, for delivering the session. It's been great. I've learned a lot about the zOSMF anyway, so.
Yeah. So maybe see you next time on another session. So yeah.
Yes,
So,
definitely. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.